Hey guys, Daniel here. This is another video. My next guest needs no introduction. If you're a comic book fan, I'm sure you've heard this name. It's the legendary Laurence Campbell. He's a comic book artist known for his work. I actually have it right here. Old Haunts, which got to working with quite a few talented people. But he's also gotten to work in comic books such as BPRD, The Punisher, 2000 AD, Deadpool, Moon Knight, The Dark Tower, and his new series, which will be coming out soon, is the Sword of Hyperborea. Perfect pronunciation. Perfect pronunciation.
Fantastic. You're a star. Well done.
I definitely haven't been practicing that in my bathroom mirror at all. Like I said, once you have a YouTube channel, these things just come so easily to you. Like,
Right.
Obviously I'm so talented and humble, and I'm very nice about it. No, I'm only messing. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited
Hey,
to
no
talk to you. And like so many different things to discuss. But first let's get into basics. So how are you today? I'm sure you're brilliant now that you have me annoying you for the next while.
This is it. It reached the top. So this is going to be fun. So no, that's good. Yep. No,
You've only gotten to work for some of the biggest companies in the world, but now you're here. So
I've reached it.
And I last time I checked, Marvel don't have 400 subscribers. They have a couple million, but still.
Oh, okay.
No, it's more than that. No one else. Yeah, so many different things I want to touch you. But the first thing, let's talk about, like we just touched on, a new comic, which I pronounced perfectly, the Sort of Hyperborea.
That's the one.
It's a new comic kind of set in the Magnolaverse. So what can you tell us about that book, and how did that come about, and what's it about?
Okay, so while I was drawing the end of BPRD, I had some ideas for a story, as it were, set around the sword. Yeah. And I've always been interested in kind of wanted to draw like a caveman story, take things back to a basic period of time, as it were, really. And so a few different variations of that kind of evolved, as it were. And then everything started. So what I did is I collected a number of different images of the kind of world I was the kind of ideas that I was had around, floating around my head. And then I sent them to Mike Mignola and Dark Horse, and they kind of connected that there was something possibly here to work on. And then over a period of time, it developed further. And then Rob Williams got involved, and then the team all started coming together. The story kind of became a bit more solid. So it's mainly based around, there's this certain iconic sword that's in BPRD. It's got like a split end. So what we do is in the mini series that we're doing, we find out a bit more about the history of that sword, and like the people that have held the sword and things like that. So yeah, it's its own story, but it also connects in with the BPRD kind of Hellboy world, as it were.
Perfect. And so that comes out sometime in January?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and so it's 4 issues. Would it be correct?
4 issues. Yep. And I'm on the last 1, 2, 3. I've got 4 more pages to draw. So
I was about to say, and so for each issue, will we be introduced to a new person, kind of following the sword throughout history, or?
Yes, we are certainly going to be introduced to. So at the moment, we know 2 people that have actually held the sword.
Yeah.
And actually, no, we know 3 people that have held the sword, and we're going to be introduced to some new faces. So you're going to have some of the old, and also some of the new. So it's going to, as I say, it's going to touch on certain periods in the BPRD world that's already established.
Yeah. And
then we're also showing, like, should we say, some hidden stories within it as well.
And so for some of these new characters, did you get to design these new characters that are getting put into the universe?
Yes. So yeah, I mean, we kind of everything gets run by Mike Mignola, kind of thing. So he has his say on it as well. But yeah, pretty much it was me and kind of Rob bouncing ideas around, kind of thing, and then going through Katie, the editor. And yeah.
And we all know what Rob can be like. I asked him to come do the channel. He beat me up a little bit, and then he realized he could get something out of it for promotion. So he eventually said, yeah. But that's, I expected it. It was fair. It was fair,
That's what we expect.
He has me conditioned to just accept that I probably deserved it at that point. But yeah, so you just touched on there getting it run by Mike Mignola. And so considering that you've done quite a lot of work on BPRD, is there ever kind of that feel Mike actually might look at this? And are you ever kind of nervous knowing that he's looking at some of your work?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've been working, to be honest, in the BPRD Hellboy world for about 7 years now. So that's quite a chunk of my time as like drawing in comics, at least 7 years it might be. So when I was first asked to draw it, what you do is I do my layouts, and then you kind of I do my pencils, then I do my inks, and I was sending my inks in. but I was too nervous to send them to Mike. So I was leaving Mike off the email because I was too petrified of what he would say. And I was just thinking he's too busy to see my work. He doesn't want to see my work and things like this. But then I was told, no, you must send it to Mike as well. So I was sending it to Mike, but I was just very shy at the beginning kind of thing. But yeah, no, he's great to work with. I mean, his input is kind of invaluable, and every now and then, so he'll like during BPRD, he would send me designs of a monster and things like that, and say, put this monster. This is the monster that you need to draw, or something like this. So it's great. I like it because there's not many creators that work on it, so it's quite a small world, and Mike's got control of that world, if you see what I mean, kind of thing. It's like he oversees it, and I like that. It's kind of, you're not going to get too much in the way of contradiction. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love all kind of comics, but sometimes like a city gets destroyed, and then almost in the next issue, that city is suddenly rebuilt, and everybody forgets that it's been destroyed. But in this, when things get broken, they stay broken for quite a while, or there's consequences. And I like kind of comics that have like a narrative like that, or consequences. And there's also kind of character personalities, so not everybody gets on with everybody, like we're in the old BPR team. And also people develop, so certain things would happen in the stories, and that would change a person's persona, if you see what I mean, which I really like.
Yeah, absolutely. And so would you consider this sort of a Hyperborea kind of its own unique? Do you think that there's a certain uniqueness concerning that? It's kind of this new concept, and it's going through these different, I guess, people in the, you know, the Mignola-verse. So do you consider it kind of a more unique, newer take on some of the more other fun characters?
Well, what I would say is that because kind of they're done at different periods of time.
Yeah.
So through being done in different periods of times, that's great for an artist, because you get to draw kind of different styles, as it were. We're not almost like my drawing stays the same, but you get different eras, you know, like like a car now looks different to the 1900s and things like that. So you get to draw these different periods of times, which is really enjoyable. And then we've got, as I say, these new characters that we've developed, and they've got their own personalities. So they're not, everybody's kind of, shall we say, written in the same way. Rob's really good at kind of bringing different kind of personalities to the characters.
Yeah.
So you get to see the personalities. You also get to see their drives as well. What drives them, as it were. So that works for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just BPRD in general, you've been working on this for quite a while, like you touched on. But how did it first come about? Were you approached at a convention, or did you pitch into them, or?
No. So
am I taking you back to the Stone Age here?
Almost. Yes, actually. Not quite. It's probably about half your age away, which is quite scary.
What's a cassette tape? What's a DVD? What's this?
Yeah, exactly. So this is show the age. I got a private message through Facebook. So, yeah, there you go. So I think at the time I was exclusive to Marvel, and I was drawing a Dark Tower. And I started talking to John Akudi, private messaged me on Facebook, and we just carried on talking. And he was kind of saying that you know, maybe we should do a book together. And I couldn't at that period because I was locked into Marvel. But when I finished, I turned around to him and said, "Look, I'm finished." And he said, "What would you like to do?" And I said, "Well, I knew that he'd done BPRD, and I said I would love to do something around that world." And so he went off and spoke to kind of Dark Horse, and he also spoke to Mike. And then I got given a 3-issue kind of part of BPRD miniseries, as it was. And then it just developed from there, really, just continued on. So really, for me, I like doing quite long arcs on books, so you can kind of really invest in the characters and things like that. So that I enjoy that.
Yeah, so it was fun for you to kind of get to play around in the Hellboyish universe and kind of come up with these new concepts, and also get to work on these new characters, come up with new designs, and get to just constantly have fun in that world. Is that something that you enjoy?
Yes. So as I say, it's quite a small world, and you know, kind of as the BPRD. So at the beginning, the stories I was doing were kind of like, they were about small parts of the BPR team, and they're quite small stories. But then as the BPRD continued, it developed. At the end, it was massive stories kind of thing. So, and I had no idea. I got told about a year or two before I got to draw it that they wanted me to show, so we say, kind of draw BPRD through to the end. And that's through on a phone conversation. I got told about our Hellboy is going to be coming back from the dead, and you're going to be getting to draw him having a fight and end like the world, frankly, and things like this. So I came away. I remember coming away from that phone call, putting the phone down, sitting downstairs, and I was too excited to eat my dinner because it was just all kind of just charging around in my head. It was quite incredible.
Yeah, definitely. You just put it perfectly there. Yeah. And so yeah, getting to draw a character like Hellboy, is there a certain sense of, you know, I guess pressure, responsibility drawing a character like Hellboy as opposed to your own character? Because, you know, it's Hellboy and everyone knows what kind of Hellboy looks like. So do you feel like I have to get the way Hellboy looks right, or maybe he wouldn't do this, or maybe he should do that? Or did you feel any sort of pressure there?
I think Mike has got such a distinctive style, so you kind of you have to be aware of that, but you don't want to copy that because you're just going to end up doing a weaker version of Mike's style, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So it was almost like looking at the way that Hellboy is drawn, and then using the way that I draw to try to interpret that. And you also break down of what Hellboy looks like. So he's kind of his body stature isn't that of a man, it's more of a kind of gorilla, as it were, kind of thing, like the stature of him. So it's getting that. And then the thing that I do as an artist, and I know other artists do, is that you try to move around like the characters, and you get like a feel for them. And I've done it when I was working on Wolverine as well, kind of thing. It was a shorter character, stockier, and they have a certain type of like walk, as it were, kind of in my head. So that's the reason why I like working on books for quite a while, because you get to know the character, you get to almost know how they move, like crazy little things, like what you think they will eat, you know, how they will sit at a table, these kind of things. You kind of get the mannerisms sorted out in your head. It gives you time to do that.
I have a very visual image of you just walking around your house like that, and do your best Hellboy impression.
Exactly, yeah, or Wolverine kind of
in your trench coat, just knocking over vases and stuff.
Exactly.
And when someone says what you do, and you say it's for work, okay, it's for work.
You don't know how many artists probably else do this. Seriously, I know it's just not me.
There's others. I'm telling you, there's this whole society of us. Yeah. Anyway, that's perfect. I could see your little trench coat there. Like even before we begun, he was doing his Hellboy impression. You know, he had on this large like kitchen glove that he just put some circles on. And then it was close enough to a Hellboy glove.
Yeah, that'll do.
But yeah, absolutely. And so I just have to talk about this book, Old Haunts.
Okay.
What a fantastic book. I recently picked this up at a big bang and I thought it was fantastic.
Oh, cool.
And I actually got to interview Rob Williams, unfortunately, for anyone who'd like to go check out that interview as well. I was only doing it to get to Laurence, obviously. I'm working my way down the chain. Rob's brilliant. You should go check him out. Yeah, Old Haunts, this is a fantastic book. And your art is extraordinary on this. There's a few pages I'd like to touch on as well. But so how did this book come about? You know, were you in contact with Ollie and Rob, or just?
Yes, well, funny enough, I have to tell you, like with Rob, I've known Rob for a good number of years now. So I was working for 2000 AD, and Rob had a comic out called Class War. So he was just getting into comics as well, and I kind of read it, and I was like, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I just left art college, and I was into kind of Marshall McLuhan, and he was kind of tackling kind of politics and superheroes, and I was interested in this as well. So I just blatantly went up to him at I think it was a 2000 AD convention and said, look, I really like your writing. If you ever want to work together, I'd be kind of well up for it, kind of thing. And yeah, we just started chatting, and then I think we went for a beer and we sounded each other out, and we realized that we liked similar comics and similar films and things like this. And then I got the opportunity to work with him on Bleeding Cool, and then pretty much sorry, not Bleeding Cool, on what was it called,
taking you back to the Stone Age yet again.
Yes,
am I?
This is quite a while ago. I'd have to come to me, but it was a Judges Set on the Moon in like a 2000 AD strip. On the name, but I'll come back to it. I promise you.
That's going to be bothering you for the rest of the interview. At some point, I'll be asking a question, and you'll say, "I have it," or something. I assume.
So anyway, so I got to know Rob from then, and then our careers kind of went along together at that point. And then with Ollie, I moved out from London and down to a place called Whitstable, and I'd done a signing at a comic shop for Punisher, and Ollie turned up. Now Ollie wasn't working in comics at this point, but he was thinking of being a writer, and I was new to the area and kind of he seemed to be a decent person. So yeah, okay, we'll meet up for kind of a coffee. And we used to go to the Starbucks and just chat about comics and process. And I showed him scripts and things like that kind of thing. And then he started writing. And then before you know it, he ended up with a mini series for Vertigo. So yeah, called The Kitchen kind of thing, which was crazy. So with Older Haunts, those two have been talking together at a con about doing a crime stroke supernatural book. And they were doing that. I just remember the name of that thing. It's Breathing Space.
See, I knew it would come
back.
There
we go. Sorry, it was nagging in the back of my head. Yeah.
Breathing space.
There you go. So anyway, those two were talking about doing a similar kind of story, but kind of like separate ways. Then they started talking, and they decided to write it together. And I was just finishing BPRD, and I knew I was going to have some like time to do something else. And they suggested kind of like working together, and I was like, yeah, I'll be up for it, because they're, as I say, I like their work, they're good friends. But it was also at the same time that Axel was setting up AWA.
Yeah.
And Axel was my very first editor at Marvel. So everything just slotted together, if you see what I mean, at the right time. And so we done it, and it was great. And I got to work with Lee again, who I worked with while I was at Marvel. And I think Lee brought something to that book that made it, for me, really special. He kind of really brought out the kind of noir lighting that I wanted, on the book. As it were.
My nemesis. As much as I despise Lee Loweridge, he's a good colorist. I will give him that. That's what we all say. In all my interviews, I always bring up that point. I hate Lee Loweridge, but man, he can definitely color.
I think that you two were great on that. I was like proper laughing out loud at certain moments when that interview. Very good, that one.
Yeah, half the jokes we made, I'm surprised I didn't even cut them out. But yeah, I'm so glad to hear that you enjoyed that. It was definitely, I assume this interview will go exactly the same, and it will end. I'm investing. Yeah, so definitely Old Haunts. For anyone watching it who doesn't know what Old Haunts is, it's basically about, 3 retired criminals who, after a while now they're kind of at the point where they can, choose to retire happily, but some secrets and some, affairs and something's buried deep down. And let's just say things don't exactly go well, and something could be chasing them or hunting them through the streets of LA. But it's a fantastic book from AWA, and I love this book immediately. I picked it up and I just knew I had to read it, and it was just so fantastic. But there's a few pages in here I'd like to touch on, because I thought I've chosen some that are exactly spoiler free. You can just give me all your your artistic input on all these brilliant pages. If I can just find them here, give me a second. I think the rest of the intro will just be me looking for the pages. I know I found one in particular. I probably should have bookmarked them. Yeah, here. Here we have a double page spread.
Yes.
And so in the script, did this say, I can't even count how many panels there. I'd say something over 10. So in the panel, they say double page spread. And did you know from the very start you wanted to do something like this layout wise?
Well, actually, at the beginning of that issue, it starts off with one panel. Then it goes to, if you go back a few pages, it starts off with one panel. Then it goes to 2. Then it goes to either 3 or 4, and it kind of builds up, and that's the center spread where it goes to, I think it's like 12. So yeah, there we go. So every time you look at it, you see there's extra panels that have been added on, and then you get to that page where it has to be kind of, I think it was 12 or 13 panels, and I think it was my design. I think it was their idea on that many panels, but it was my design to do the person's head kind of behind it all, as it were, kind of thing. So you get to see different glimpses of his life at different periods of his time, of the time, as it were.
Yeah, fantastic. And so I imagine it was a lot more freeing to get into work on something like this, because, you can have a lot of fun with how the characters look and something like that. Because, when you're working on Punisher or Hellboy, even though you may have some freedom there, there's still, everyone knows what, like, the line is with Punisher. But for these old characters, you can have, like, whatever fun you want. So did you feel as if there was a bit of fun here getting to work with these characters?
I think what I wanted to do that was to play around with, so there's 2 things I worked on that. So one of it was structure. I was interested in structure in it, and I was interested in panel design. So what you've got is a lot of the book is just widescreen panels, which is what we decided. Now that's something I've taken from Punisher. So when I worked on Punisher Max, you was only allowed to do widescreen panels. Every panel had to be a widescreen. It was a law. It wasn't law, but it was what Garth Ennis wanted. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
If you go back and have a look at all your Punisher Max the all widescreen panels. And so when I came on that book, Garth had left, but we kept the same structure of widescreen panels. And I wanted to carry on with that. But what I've done also is when things start going, shall we say, a bit out of control, kind of in the book, you'll see that there's I kind of break up the widescreen panels, and it kind of breaks up a different way. And that's where I wanted to kind of, so you've got normal life, which is widescreen panel, and then you've got like the breaking of the scenes, as it were, kind of thing, when things get a little bit more different and supernatural.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And so with the widescreen panels, do you think that choosing that maybe didn't work in your favor sometimes because, or did you find that it was actually kind of freeing and that you could work with it really, or was it a challenge?
I like the challenge. I come from a graphic design background, and graphic design is pretty much about, you have to work with set boundaries, if that makes sense. So you kind of like, oh, it's a leaflet, it has to be A4 and it can only be 2 colors, and they set these boundaries, and then you have to work within it. So the idea of every panel has to be widescreen, you have to kind of pick your shot wisely of what you're going to show in that panel.
Yeah.
And I quite like it. I quite like that shape seems to lend itself to my way of thinking. It might be connected with films because I like films and kind of movies and things like that.
Yeah.
And maybe it lends itself to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just another page I have to bring up here. This is it's probably my favorite Old Hans page out of the whole entire thing. Just look at that absolutely brilliant page.
Cheers. But that's what I mean by it breaking down. So that one's not widescreen because you've got a supernatural moment, as it were. So it's kind of it brings a different kind of feel to the page.
Yeah, definitely. And so did this say like was this described in the script, and then you just kind of put it from the script onto that?
No, this was discussions with the writers. So we would sit down, and so I think originally it wasn't going to be widescreen, and I suggested that it should be widescreen, and then they said about, well, okay, if you're going to do that, then push the pages that are going to be, shall we say, a little bit more supernatural. And so we had the opportunity to experiment a bit. They experimented themselves by doing the issue that starts off with 1 panel and then builds up to the 12. So
yeah, absolutely. And what I love is how at the bottom we can see all the skeletons there, and it always baffles me how artists can do this. What looks to be like a bunch of squiggles, but then when you really look in, you can see they're all kind of connected, and like all the skeletons, and they're all stacked on top of each other. And that was just absolutely fantastic to me. So it still baffles me how people can do that. That's just a brilliant page there.
Thank you. That took a while to kind of draw. I must admit, all those little skeletons took a while. So
just shorthanded, just silhouette them all. Is there any lighting underground? Who knows?
No, of course not. That's what I should have done.
You should have got just a bunch of lights just to annoy Lee Laurence. That's what whenever I'm gonna get the next writer who works on a book with him to put in all these different light sources just by him, just to do it, just so he has
3D textures.
Exactly. Yeah. You see, you understand. I'll just get you to do it. So do you look back at some of your, earliest work and see improvement and see how, oh, maybe I would have done something different now, or maybe I could have done this? Is that how, really?
And you know what? I think as much as it's painful, I think it's also important because it shows progression in my eyes, kind of thing. I mean, you're not going to be, very few people are perfect straight away. So, you kind of learn as you go. And there's so many, it's not just the drawing you're doing, you've got to consider the deadlines. Do you see what I mean? It's not just the drawing. There's multiple things going on that, and then your storytelling also maybe improves as well. So I mean, there's lots of things that can improve. And I don't think there's anything wrong with looking back and thinking, okay, I would have done that differently.
And is it hard for you to look back at some of your earliest work, or is it like, I don't want to?
I very rarely look back, but sometimes when I do look back, it's generally not as bad as what it is in my head. So I kind of look at it and think, oh, it's not as bad as I thought it was, because in my head, it'll be the world's worst kind of thing.
I highly doubt that. Yeah, absolutely. And here's another fantastic page I just found there.
Yes.
With the panels there, fantastic. So I imagine, did you do this completely black and the letter Sal, put them in, or did you actually draw out the Wumph?
No, that was just kind of, the lettering was done by the letterers, Sal, but the text was done there. So the idea for that came about, I was driving through a tunnel, And I was talking to the others about, I love the way that you get these light reflections that go kind of, I was looking at the cars we were driving past, you could see the little light reflections. And as we were driving along the tunnel, there'd be moments when it would go dark just for a little while. And it was like a beat, like a music beat, as it were, kind of thing. So I remember explaining to them about this kind of thing, and that's what they came up with. And yeah, I got to draw it kind of thing. So yeah, no, that was good fun. I like doing that. I think with the shape and the size of the panel, you can control quite a lot, even before you put the drawing in there.
Yeah.
Like you can control the reader, whether they're gonna read it fast or slow and things like this. And you can also make things I feel uncomfortable for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so another thing I want to touch on is some of the covers, which I actually have right here. Of course, this is the cover for, I believe, issue 1. Yeah. And so when it came to covers, you know, did you all come up with that together, or did you just come up with it? Because that's always fascinating me, covers. Like, did you have to come up with a few different, you know, sketches and send it to them and see what they thought? Or did you just, you know, conversate with them and see whatever worked? Or how did the cover for issue 1 come about?
That originally was just, I had to come up with an image before I was working on the book. I was still working on BPRD at that point. Yeah. And they wanted an image that would just sum up the book. And that's what I come up with. So they had to be an image that would kind of, they said, we need an image that gives the feel of what type of book it's going to be. So I drew that. And then they said, that's our cover for number 1. So that was it. Perfect. I love doing covers. It appeals to the graphic design sensibilities inside me that I like. A cover's very different from the interiors, as it were, and it's a different kind of brief. Yeah,
and there's a few other fantastic covers there. Like what issue?
Yeah, thank you.
And issue 3.
That's cover number 2, and then cover number 3. Cover number 2, each issue focuses on a different member of the gang, as it were.
Yeah.
So number 2 is quite like the guy in that one is quite violent, as it were. So that was the scene on that one. Number 3. We look at one of the gangsters of why he's violent, and it goes back to his childhood. So that was me, like a way of showing that, as it were.
Yeah.
But normally with each cover, I would do probably around about 4 to 6 different ideas.
Oh, and
then I send them to the writers and also the editor, and then they will pick one, and then I'll draw it up.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's a few other fantastic covers there.
Yeah. So the final cover is a kind of almost a reflection of the first one, and the one beforehand is the bird is a kind of like a presence. It's kind of like something that's hanging over the whole kind of the gang. So the bird, you've got this kind of shadow of the bird over the city, and the car driving along as if they're being chased by this thing that's coming up behind them. So that was the idea behind that.
Yeah, those are some. That's what I love about this book, is how not only is it a really great action comic, but there's also a lot of symbolism and a lot of meaning behind most of the little decisions, and you can see that it all ties together, and it does feel very like cinematic, and it just feels like this really great experience. Brilliant. And so yeah, touching on that cinematic, it was recently announced, big news, that Old Haunts would be adapted into a film.
Right.
And so, you know, what's that like? Currently, they're penning the script, but is this still a bit surreal to you? You know, how did you even hear about this? I assume maybe you got an email or.
Yes, we had an email and then a meeting. So what they're doing is they're turning it. They've got a writer to write a script for a film, as it were, kind of thing. So
yeah,
you know, and then after that, they're going to show that around to kind of movie companies. So it's one step at a time. To be honest, I'm not. These things are out of my control, so there's no point me even kind of thinking about this stuff. If it gets turned into a movie, fantastic. But you know, kind of, I enjoy drawing the comic as well. So you know, let's wait and see, kind of thing on that one. So.
Yeah, definitely. And so, is it still a bit surreal to you, or is it not until you're sitting down and it's actually made and it's produced?
Yes, that's it, because you hear so many stories of kind of films that never get made. The journey there is quite long. So the best thing to do, in my eyes, is to just kind of carry on and live your life the way it is, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really hope you do make it. And of course, you know, you can just be there, Stan Lee, and you can just pop in every circle minute. And you're like, actually, in the comic, this was different.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Just to be clear, you can just be there in the script. And then I assume you get shot almost immediately. But the film starts with Lee Loweridge dying 10 times, maybe just stacking, and then maybe you and Rob once. But just as long as we truly get the message out across Lee, well, then that's okay. But yeah, absolutely. Old Hans, people should go pick that up. I believe this is a collection here. You can pick it up from your local comic book store or order it from anywhere locally. But so, was there anything in Old Hans that was your favorite particular thing to draw, or did you enjoy drawing the book? All of them.
I enjoyed drawing all of it. The characters in it are quite different, and I like that they were quite each one. Like as I said, there's one that's quite aggressive. And then there's the one that you go. There's one character, as I say, we go into his past as a child, and this is where the writers Ollie and Rob are really great at kind of making you. I mean, because like this is a story about kind of villains, really, but it makes you care about them, and that's a tricky thing to do when you're going to care about somebody that is a nasty piece of work. And I think they managed to do that. These people are not completely bad. They've done bad things, but at one point they were a child, if you see what I mean. And,
definitely.
And you get to see like the reasons why the way they are, and also you get to see how friendship works and how the sense of respect for each other. But also you've got this thing that's going on that has been boiling up over the years that's going to come up.
Yeah, absolutely. You just put it perfectly there. And what I love is how, and I think you definitely portray this in the art, is how no matter, and I love when books do this, like these characters who are bad, we know that they're bad people. It doesn't shy away from the fact that they're bad. But, there's something about, the human mind that just, you have to understand them. And, whether you like them, that's a different thing. But understanding them and understanding why they're doing it is a really integral part. And I love how in your art, you did that perfectly. And like, I mean, issue 3, that just speaks for itself. Like, I think that was some really great character work there. Yeah, but so was it important for you to just make these characters understandable, especially while drawing them? And was there anything that you really wanted to get across while drawing them, or did you just want to like depict them as really cool gangsters?
Well, the writers, again, they give me a description of kind of what the characters kind of what they kind of look like, the kind of feel that they kind of go for. And that really helpful. Sometimes they would give me actors' names that say, oh, this guy, he's a bit like this, or he's a bit like this. And I put that all in the mix. And then what you do, whether you're drawing like a superhero comic or whatever else, you've got to give, even if they've not got superpowers, you still got to make them they've got to be kind of, you've got to be able to identify them within like a room, as it were. So, kind of, you got like, there's one of them who's slightly shorter, stocky. There's another one who's got a beard and things like that. So you make little things that so you're able to recognize them. There's one with glasses. Do you see what I mean? So you make little things to them that make you then able to recognize them once they're in a group.
Yeah, definitely. And you just put it perfectly there. And like, I think that definitely comes through in the art. Like each character looks different. You can visually recognize them. And I can imagine, if they all look the exact same, it would probably be a bit hard.
Yes, then you're in trouble kind of thing. So,
exactly, yeah. And so everyone should go just immediately pick this up. You can pick up all the singles or this. And before it gets turned into a huge film, that's why, which I mean, not to jinx it, but if it ever does. And that's why, of course,
I'll be delighted, yes.
I'm getting down on the groundwork, I'm going to have everyone on. Yeah. And then, I mean, I'm sure that's going to be great for Lee Loweridge's ego, because that's exactly what we need. Laurence, yours as well. I assume, like, I had to get in touch with his assistant. I had to roll out red carpet and had to go buy red carpet just for this interview. He never even checked. He just assumed it would happen. So now I have a big red carpet just rolled across directly up to here.
Is it the same one from Lee's? Come on,
exactly. Yeah. I recycle most of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's something about the Old Hans guys, and before that I was Rob Williams. So I just have it in a cupboard titled Old Hans for whenever I interview. for whenever I interview Ollie, I'll be like, okay, give me a second, and I'll just go up and I'll just pull it out, and it'll be all like torn and tattered, and I'll say, this is from when I interviewed you. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone should go pick up Old Hans. I would highly recommend it. A review will be coming soon. But yeah, so another thing that we just touched on there that I found really interesting was your Punisher work. And I believe you got to do like an issue, and you touched there that was the cinematic panels. And so was that for the whole Punisher issue you did?
I done about 3 or 4 Punisher one shots, and then I've done a five issues as well, all widescreen.
Wow.
So, but seriously, if you go back, have a look at Punisher Max, have a look at what Garth Ennis done, the whole 75 issues or whatever it is, all widescreen.
After that, were all your comics just widescreen from now on? You were like, I can't go back. It's too late. I've already done it. But yes. So
I think the idea, the reason why it was done that way, as far as I can remember the editor saying, was so to remove it away from being like, should we say, a superhero Punisher. It was more of a kind of, this was Punisher Max, this was a lot darker, a lot more serious, and the kind of, they wanted that kind of a feel to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so did that present a certain challenge? And do you think that over time you kind of got more used to it and like, okay, yeah, I can work within these barriers? And at first, did you struggle with that at all?
For me, no, but I can understand why a lot of people maybe would, because as I said, I come from a graphic design background, and it's kind of like that sensibility of having structure there I really like. But for some artists, I think that they possibly could find that frustrating, because it does make you hold back certain things. You can't be as flashy maybe, because it's all about the storytelling because of the widescreen panel. And a widescreen panel automatically makes you read a little bit slower, because your eyes tracking from one side to the other. Where if you want to make the story quicker, you put lots of thin panels, because then the beat is quicker, as it were. So having a longer widescreen kind of takes your time a little bit, and it makes it a little bit more difficult on the lettering side as well, because you can't have many word balloons kind of coming backwards and forwards. But for me, I enjoyed it. My run on Punisher, I really enjoyed it, because it was the comic that I very first inked myself. Before then, I only done pencils and other people inked me. But so when I drew Wolverine, that was just pencils, someone else inked me. Then I was doing some roughs, because they told me I was going to be doing Punisher next. And I'd just done some roughs and I've sent them in. And I said, oh, this was my inks. And Axel kind of was really good. He was a really good nurturing editor. Excellent. And he turned around and said, yeah, okay, this is what we want. Don't be inked by anyone else again. Ink yourself, because you bring something else to it. And what I brought to it, looking back now, was I was able to bring textures and a looseness to it. Where before, I think my work, because I still felt like I was learning, I'm still learning now, but I was definitely kind of learning. I felt like an inker would bring something else to the work. It's because years ago, when I first was trying to get into comics, somebody told me that my pencils are great, but my inking was terrible, which it probably was. But then I stayed with that.
Like the Punisher, my dad's favorite comic book character of all time.
Oh, okay.
And so, so you worked with Garth on that? Would it be correct in saying so?
No, I was the first artist once he left. So I would have loved to have done a Garth Ennis Punisher, but he left, and then I was like, they were continuing these Punisher Max after that. And
who was the writer after Garth?
They got three different. They got three different crime writers in. So
Jason Aaron, was he one?
No, he came later on.
Oh right, he would have. Correct.
You got Dwayne Sawinski was one of them.
Yes, he would.
And then there was two other kind of writers as well. Writers as well, but all have done known crime books. And then they, and then Jason Aaron come on to kind of finish the book, as it were.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, absolutely. And so, like, getting to work on the Punisher and stuff, I believe you also got to do you got to do some work on Wolverine. Like we touched on earlier, you running around your house with like forks between your fingers, just stabbing into stuff.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, I assumed you just stabbed into everything there is,
Yeah, a menace in the kitchen.
That's how you've often been described, just as a comic book writer in general.
Yes, I can see that.
Laurence Campbell, the menace in the kitchen.
Menace in the kitchen.
Like I said, that's probably going to be. I assume that's your next create your own book. The Menace in the Kitchen. It's a truly beautiful story. And so did you do that Wolverine story with Rob Williams?
I did. So when we were doing Breathing Space, me and Rob decided that we were going to pitch something to Marvel. So we thought we'd pick a kind of a lower tier character. So we picked on Sunfire. We thought nobody's going to be doing anything with Sunfire. So Rob kind of done a basic outline for a script, and I drew some character sketches, and we sent some pages of Breathing Space into Marvel, and they said we can't do Sunfire because at that period of time, I can't remember now, he was either dead or I think he had his legs kind of taken away from him or something like that kind of thing. So we couldn't use him. But they said, we want you to draw an issue of Wolverine instead. And we were like, me and Rob were like, what?
And then I assume you declined. You're just like, nah.
No. We were very excited about this. So we done done an issue of Wolverine together. So that was great. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so getting to work in a character like Wolverine, was that particularly fun for you? Or like,
Yeah.
was it a bit daunting?
A bit daunting, yeah, but
Yeah.
also really exciting. Kind of X-Men was the first kind of color Marvel book I ever picked up.
Wow.
So yeah, so it was kind of like and Wolverine was kind of quite popular, was getting popular at that time. So yeah, drawing. I knew that Wolverine was a big deal, kind of thing. So yeah, so done that one issue and it's fantastic. Yeah, I had a great time on that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And I think
But it was a bit daunting. I remember at the time thinking, "Oh my god!" So
yeah, absolutely. And so another thing you got to do with Rob, which I absolutely adore, is the 2000 AD, sure here, 2000 AD Christmas special Strontium dog story.
yes,
Which was it's such a great story. I think it's one of my favorite 2000 AD stories in recent time, and I love how much you managed to. But for anyone who isn't aware of that, what can you tell us about that story and like how did that come about? For anyone who doesn't know, can you maybe tell them about it?
Yeah. So that story originally came about. So somebody sent me their sketchbook because they wanted a drawing in it, and they said, draw what you want. And I used to before 2000 AD, which I bought from a kid. I used to buy this other comic called Star-Lord, which then merged into 2000 AD. And in Star-Lord was Strontium Dog. And I always thought that Strontium Dog was the coolest. So I just thought, I'm going to draw Strontium Dog in this sketchbook. And I used the Star-Lord style kind of costume. Yeah. And I drew it, and I had a kind of a whale of a time. So what I'd done was I kind of drew it, I sent it off, but I kind of took a scan of it and I just put it on my Twitter feed or Facebook feed. Rob saw it and said, bloody hell, yeah, we should do a Strontium Dog strip. So he then got in touch with Farg, and then we got to do just a one-shot Strontium Dog. So
yeah, definitely. And so, for anyone that doesn't know, unfortunately, Carlos Esqueras, the legendary original Strontium Dog caster, artist, sorry. He unfortunately passed away, but Carlos's work's fantastic. I have the shirt here, the memorial shirt, which is given to me by the legendary Paul Trimble, which everyone should go check out.
Oh wow, cool!
Check out Enniskillen Comic Fest and OMAC Comic Fest on Facebook. But yeah, so getting to work on that after him and getting to work on Strontium Dog, was there a bit of like, I mean, it's one thing to do, but getting to do something like this, like Strontium Dog himself, and there hasn't been much Strontium Dog since then, and I think, like, looking back at it, I think it's like a love letter to the original Strontium Dog stories.
It was totally. We weren't looking for anything else. It was a love letter. It was a love letter to the character and a love letter to Carlos, really, kind of thing. So, I mean, I loved, as I said, the Star-Lord Strontium Dog was for me amazing, kind of thing. So when I was preparing to draw it, I was like looking back at the old Star-Lord episode, like issues, kind of thing. And of course, I'm looking at them closely now because I'm going to be drawing the character. And you kind of you appreciate not only is Carlos fantastic, but I then appreciate him on another level because I was looking at the amount of drawing that went in there, kind of thing, and the design work and things like that. So on that sense, it was really, really great. And then kind of Rob wanted to also bring in, like, hark back to the old Strontium Dog stories, which were kind of very much kind of cowboy based.
Yeah.
So, and kind of Rob knows I like working in this widescreen. So if you have a look at that book, it's also, I think it's virtually all widescreen panels in that issue as well. And that kind of favors the kind of the Wild West type scene that we were going for. And we asked whether the book could only be colored for the first 2 pages and then after that go black and white, which is a kind of respect to how 2000 AD used to be, as it were.
Yes.
So 2000 AD used to have color spread in double page spread in the middle of the book and then be black and white. And I wanted to use that kind of feel to give it a kind of that old school quality as well. So there was a lot of thought that went into that strip. It wasn't just kind of smash and grab, let's do Strontium Dog. There was a kind of a lot of respect, a lot of thought, and a lot of, I tried to bring the best I can to it. I asked Dylan to color it, which he agreed.
Yeah.
And then Dylan done grayscales on the other pages as well to make it look old school as well. So,
yeah, Dylan Teague.
Dylan Teague, yep.
Yeah, fantastic artist. Yeah, absolutely. And so, I have to ask this. I'm a very prying interviewer, very serious. Yeah. How hard is it to draw Strontium Dog's helmet? How hard is it? Is it easy?
It's tricky. I mean, if you ever look, this is the thing is also, because I chose to draw the Star-Lord version, this is kind of getting into the nitty gritty, I'm afraid. There's these 2 little bits that come out here, which later on in the series, they remove. So later on in the series, it comes around here, then it comes around here like this. But in the original Star-Lord, there's a poster where these little bits come, like little protrude bits out here. And I really wanted to put those in because I really loved it. They felt a little bit alien to me, kind of thing. So I purposely added those. And then he's also got this kind of crazy kind of uniform that comes down around here. And again, Carlos changed that over a period of time. And so I went back and I used the original version of that as well. So you know, the story that we were creating was an old story, as it were. It was almost like a story from the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And so have you gotten to do any other 2000 AD work? I believe you've gotten to do some other stories.
Oh, no. I've done a few bits and bobs. I mean, I've done some dreads and things like that. And I've done that breathing space. I've done Cinnamon, which was a kind of female spy character. I've done Bison, which was my very first thing when I worked for 2000 AD. Oh, no, I've done a dread. A dread was my first thing I'd done for 2000 AD.
First 2000 AD story being a dread.
Straight into a dread, a John Wagner dread as well.
Oh, yeah. John Wagner. No breaks, no breaks.
Exactly. So straight into a John Wagner dread. Then I've done Bison, Cinnamon. Then I've done some dreads, breathing space, more dreads, and then Strontium Dog. Me and Rob have got another dread story that we want to do, but it's scheduling, and it's one that's the one that we want to do is quite a few episodes long. So it's about, you know, we were talking about like 7 episodes or something like that. So it's like a little bit of a dread saga, and I would love to do that, but it's just a case of slotting it when we can both sit down and do it, kind of thing. But I do. There's certain things I would like to do, and that would be one of them.
Yeah, and so you have gotten to do some work on dread before, all right. So question.
I think the thing with dread is, with Strontium Dog, I felt comfortable with what I'd done. And with Dread, I don't think I've reached what I want to achieve with that character yet. I feel like I need another crack at him to get what I want out of him.
Absolutely, absolutely. Who has a harder helmet to draw, Strontium Dog or Judge Dredd? Which helmet's harder?
In my eyes, Dread.
Really? Dread?
Yeah.
I didn't expect that. What's
because Strontium Dog's helmet seems to work for me. It kind of, I feel like it's been structured around a head. If you kind of look at Dread's costume, if I'm honest, is a really tricky costume to draw. I find it, you got the whole eagle thing, the pad, and then his helmet is kind of, because it's kind of the way that where his eyes are and where his helmet is, the helmet would fit quite tight to his head, as it were, if it was drawn realistically. So you have to kind of like, because I draw in a quite realistic style, so you have to fudge it, so it has to be away a bit. But yeah, Dread's an odd character to draw. Kind of his head and the proportions of it with the helmet is kind of strange. And then you get some people that draw his chin like crazy big, and then other people that just draw it more kind of, should we say, more normal. So it's a real, he can be drawn in different styles. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. PJ Holden, I got to interview, he had the exact same problem. He said, no way Dread could actually exist. Like anatomically, where it stops, it'd be like 10 feet higher, and it would not work at all.
Exactly. Where Strontium Dogs would.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so it's working. Would you like to do more work in 2080 in the future or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've got work mapped out, as it were. But at some point, I would love to, I've got a Dread itch that I need to scratch. As I said, I don't feel like the Strontium Dog, I'm at peace with the Strontium Dog. I'm done. I've done it. I've done something that I'm happy with. I can walk away from that. Dread, I need another crack at Dread. I need to kind of, I'm not happy with the way that I've drawn Dread. I need to nail that a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I imagine you were a huge 2000 AD fan growing up.
Yes.
Yeah. And so this is a question I ask all my 2000 AD guests. You could see 2 2000 AD characters fight. Who would it be and why?
Oh, mate, that's a tricky one.
I'm putting you on the spot, aren't I? I had some people say Shaco the polar bear versus Wolf from Strontium.
See, I've got two. Different periods of my life. Well, I've read 2000 AD since I can't remember when, but like different periods of my life. So, for example, I absolutely kind of Star-Lord was first, so I was all over Strontium Dog. Then I absolutely loved Dave Gibbons' Dendare. I thought that was amazing. Then I love the VCs drawn by Cam Kennedy and Gary Leach. That was
Yes.
incredible. Then later on, Zenith blew me away. Zenith was one of the comics that made me want to draw comics. When I read Zenith and I saw what Steve Yoel was doing with the black and whites, cogs started going in my brain, and that's when things started. I started reading the comic as I started analyzing the comic, shall we say, and I started understanding comic storytelling through reading Zenith.
Absolutely.
And
Wow.
yeah, but I've not answered your question. So, two characters. It probably have to be kind of like a Dread Strontium Dog standoff kind of thing.
That's exactly.
That's what it would have to be.
That's
but,
mine as well. That was my first ever, theory. I'd like to see those two characters just fight. Johnny Alpha trying to get away, obviously, because he's committed a crime. I mean, that's not even fair. That's not even fair to say. He'd get done in for something, I mean, he calls himself a bounty hunter, but let's be honest. Let's how much he's done.
I would play up their equipment as well. So I would have Dread be shouting out the different type of bullets he was using, and I'd have Strontium Dog Johnny using these grenades that kind of throw people in, like the time and space thing, and the Electronux and things like that. I'd get them using all their proper equipment. That's the way to go.
Instead of using his equipment, he's probably just hide behind Wolf the whole time. Get him, go! He's right there. Go!
Angry Viking, go get him.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, coming off comics, my last couple of just technical questions before we finish up. Do you do all your drawing digitally, or is it like
it's about 50-50. So I use paper. I still draw. I'm one of these old school artists that still draw on paper. But then I finish some of it in Photoshop. So it's probably 75% paper, 25% Photoshop. So I scan it in, I clean it up, and then I use some little effects and things like that in Photoshop, and then it's done. So, but most of it is drawn on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. And so are you even a perfectionist when it comes to your work, or are you a kind of like, no, I think that's okay? Or are you constantly looking at, no, this has to be better, or anything like that?
Okay. So I've got a certain level and standard that it has to hit before I can be able to feel comfortable to leave the office.
Yeah.
But it's a weird kind of thing, because I don't want my work to be too tight in the way that I draw it. I can't be a tight and I can't be a clean artist. I'm naturally messy artist. I also like fluidity, so I like to get brush strokes shown in it, and textures. These are important to me. Textures are important as well. And also kind of when I went to art college, you get taught about what's called happy accidents, where you make a mistake but it looks good from the mistake you make, but it's keeping your mind open enough that the mistake is okay to use and not an error, if that makes sense. And so a combination of that. But I am thinking of going digital. I keep thinking, I'll go digital, but then there is something really nice about drawing on paper, and it just feels, I just like the feel. I know it sounds daft and it's probably quite romantic, but I kind of like the feel of the pen on the paper.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
Yeah, the noise it makes sometimes, and the texture and the pull that it gives. And also, my if you look at my pages, they're also some of them are patchwork quilts where they've got patches on and things like that, where I've just stuck, kind of a mistake on top of a mistake.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think you just put it perfectly there. But I think looking at your work, I mean, I have to commend you on this. It's very rare that I'm normally I'll interview people because, I like some of the books they work on. But when I look at your art on you, this art is just such a uniqueness to it. I've never seen anything quite like your art. And it was so perfect. And I was like, I really want to interview him just to hear his insight on how he draws. And so getting to chat with you is it's just a pleasure. So thank you. And your art is fantastic. But yeah, so my last couple of questions. What's your dream comic book? If you could do a comic book with any character in the whole entire universe, who would it be?
Okay, so I absolutely love working in like we know there's kind of Hellboy world. I'm very happy to just carry on drawing there, if I'm honest. But there's certain little things I would like to have a crack at. As I said, one of them is to do a Dread that I'm entirely happy with. And the other one is just something that people keep asking me, and that's draw a Batman strip.
Oh, you'd be fantastic on that.
And I'd like to draw a Batman strip that's either like a solving like an occult case, as it were, kind of thing, or a kind of like a proper mystery, like a mystery of something that unfolds. I would like to. I'm not so fussed about him kind of punching so many people. I like the idea of discovering him, like breaking down a mystery or an occult problem. That would be good. I also recently read that the Demon, the character, the Demon from DC Comics.
Oh yeah, Etrigan.
Yeah, it comes from Gotham City. And I was just like thinking, oh my Lord, that, you know, that would be quite mad as well. Kind of like the Demon and Batman meeting, if they're both in Gotham City, that would be quite fun as well.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
I've never worked for DC, so, you know, kind of.
Just say, I'm Laurence Campbell. Daniel Fee33 is interviewed.
Oh yeah, okay.
Where do I sign up? Where's the contracts? I assume that's how comic books work. You just bring up my name and you're rich, you know.
Right. Okay. Let's do it.
On Batman, there's this one character. You'd be fantastic on a Batman book, by the way. Your art is perfect for that. But Condiment King. Do you know who Condiment King is? I bring him up on my channel every single interview.
Yes. Well, you didn't bring him up on the Lee Larridge interview, but you did bring him up on the Dan Walters one.
Yes, you did. You watched
quite a lot.
Yes, I'm so happy you watched that interview. That means the world to me. Yes, Condiment King. Draw Condiment King. So that's so cool. Now I'm known in the comic book community as Condiment King guy, that's okay. Honestly, I could have done a lot worse. But yeah, so Condiment King, I assume. Now I have to see him in your style. Just Condiment King. Like that, you'd be great on that book because there's such a level of brevity to him and such a beauty in the way he shoots ketchup at people. I get choked up talking about it. But it's just he's such a great character. So I assume Condiment King book in the making now.
Yep. Watch this space.
You can work with me on my create your own series, Relish Ravager. I call it the Relish Ravager to avoid all that copyright stuff.
Exactly, you don't want to get into copyright issues.
No, it's this guy who shoots, I suppose you could say condiments, you know,
yeah,
trademark.
Yes.
But yeah, absolutely. Condiment King, it just has to be that. But yeah, so coming off that, my last and final question for you, if anyone was looking to get into comic books, what advice would you have for them?
Oh, okay. That's quite a tricky one, because it took me quite a while to get into comics. So I think if you're going to do sample pages, aim them for what. So if you want to draw, I don't know, Judge Dredd, do Judge Dredd sample pages. I know that sounds daft, but you know, I remember sending in stuff that wasn't Judge Dredd, trying to get to draw Judge Dredd, as it were. So if you want to draw Judge, you know, focus your audience on where focus the target where you want to go.
Yeah.
So if you want to draw Dredd sample pages, and you know, kind of. Don't expect to be kind of accepted straight away. So believe in yourself, but also be honest to yourself as well. So, you know, kind of if somebody says no, you'd need to work on, I don't know, like your figure work, then spend some time doing that figure work. You know, believe in yourself. You think I can do this and carry on doing it. And you got to accept to say that people will say no. But if you've got to firmly believe yourself, and it's hard graft as well. You have to put in the, you know, it doesn't suddenly magically, like it does for some people, but it certainly didn't for me and a lot of other people. It doesn't suddenly magically lay out in front of you. So, you know, you have to put in the hours. You have to put in the hours drawing. You have to kind of accept the rejection letters, but you have to believe in yourself and still go for it, really. It's kind of one of those things you kind of, if you really want it, I think you can get it, but you have to just put in the hard work.
Absolutely. You just put it perfectly there. If anyone watching is inspiring, listen to the master himself, Laurence Campbell. He loves Condiment King, so you know he has a good judgment for that type of things. And, you know, just Condiment King, that'll get you far. But yeah, everyone make sure to go listen to that. Brilliant advice. Laurence, it's been such a pleasure chatting.
Yeah, it's been great.
Before we finish up, are you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything like that?
Oh, yes. So I'm on Twitter as Get Campbell. Facebook as Laurence Campbell. I think they're the two main ones. And I've got a website called Get Campbell as well.
Absolutely. And so any upcoming projects that you can talk about or touch on?
No. So you've got sort of Hyperborea coming out in January. I can't say what else I'm working on. So that's it, I'm afraid.
I mean, we all know it's Condiment King. You can just say it. It's fine. It's a safe space. You know, you don't have to keep on hiding, Laurence. You know? It's like you were very on the nose with your love for Condiment King. Or it's either that's your pitch that you're constantly working on. You're just
Yes. Me and Dan Walters on Condiment King. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I get that. Ah, damn. I've screwed out of it. I was screwed out of my own condiment thing. I knew this would happen. I put the ideas out there. I've only myself to blame. They slowly pushed me out until there was no more room left. I'll still get those, you know, the sweet checks. They'll come in anyway. But yeah, absolutely. Laurence, it's been such a pleasure chatting to you. Everyone, please make sure to like and subscribe. Follow me over on Twitter if you like @SamboGizmo1. Go pick up Sort of Hyperborea. Comes out. The first issue comes out January.
Yep.
Yeah, and if possible, please make sure to donate to the National Deaf Children's Society. You can check that in the description. If you have the means, please make sure every little helps. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. And yeah, like I said, please make sure to like and subscribe and go check out Laurence's work. But yeah, long live Condiment King. Bye.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.